Hello, I'm Lily Kunsuri Sawad, and I'll be discussing the three most impactful moments that express discomfort, clarity, and purpose during my MGMT course. So, starting off with discomfort, I remember in week 7, we discussed cultural humility and how different cultures views different things, and it eventually landed on gender roles and expectations from different genders. And I remember thinking these views were very different from mine, so I felt uncomfortable and rather defensive at times. So that made me hesitate to share my own views. But from what I learned, um, I realized that it is very unrealistic to expect everyone to hold the same values as you. And regardless, you should respect them and respect their values. So, from this discussion, I learned to respectfully discuss different views and instead of listening to argue or debate, I listened to genuinely learn from them because learning about cultures is truly never ending. Secondly, clarity. During week 5 in the tutorial class, personally, the most significant part was when we were discussing giving voices to values, and we were discussing a case of Ben, who was an employee for a nonprofit, and he found some tax disparities that may show fraud, and we were tasked to give a solution. And I remember being quite frustrated about how limited my thinking was because it was quite in the box and rather black and white and I was unable to produce a satisfactory solution. Um, but I then remembered the considerations of who I have to consider and the cost of not speaking up and not having a good solution is much higher than not speaking up. So practicing your moral memory is very important. And I often now in group works, I do think to myself, or in reports, I do think, what would Ben do? What would Ben's solution be? Because his solution was a win-win situation and it considered all the stakeholders. And lastly, purpose. The most impactful situation was when I was researching for the Coca-Cola case in assessment 2, and I was researching the consequences and effects of Coca-Cola drinks in Mexico, and I was um, very, very, very stunned about how severe the consequences are. And I was feeling rather guilty for being ignorant for so long, for dismissing the issue as to being, oh, it's just something that affects a few people's health. But in reality, it is not. So now I consider the SDG goals 3, 7, and 12 more personally because it's about responsible consumption, production, and partnership. Um, so I understand that they are all intertwined and they are not separate. And moving forward, when I am in a position of power, I will consider this and looking from different perspective, not just my own, not just the people within the company, but people who it is affecting, and also the environment, of course. There is much more to learn. And in conclusion, I find that this course has been very transformative, and the method of teaching has been it had personal touch, so it is very memorable, and I am very thankful for this course. Thank you.